Hello, going live to talk about baby and toddler communication. This is Dr. Diana here. I am the CEO and founder of Pump with Purpose. We are a global lactation and postpartum private practice teaching women all across the world to breast pump with the right pump, flange, products, and schedule. I am going to be joined momentarily by Beyond Babbles, and we're going to talk about toddler baby communication. So let's get ready to jump in. I'm going to Babbles on so we can discuss. I'm so excited all of you are joining. Let us know where you're tuning in from. This is an interactive live. So please communicate. Let us know. Hello.
Hi, how's it going?
It is going well. How are
I'm
you?
doing good. I'm doing good.
Yes.
It's good to be on here.
Yes, thank you so much. I was giving a
Yeah,
little
of course.
introduction, but I'm not going to steal the thunder. I want you to let the community know a little bit about you, your practice, all the things and anything.
Yeah. So thank you again for having me on today. So my name is Joanne Cazot. I am, I guess, the founder here at Beyond Babbles. I'm a pediatric speech language pathologist. I specialize in toddler and baby and toddler communication. So looking at speech and language development. So really working with those children who are under 5, who have either speech or language delays. I also own a private practice in New Jersey. It's a mobile practice, so we travel to our clients. So we see our clients either at home, in daycare, or in their preschools. And our therapy is play-based, so we do not do drills. There's no expectation that the child will even sit in one place when we do therapy. So we just really follow the child's lead. And we really serve them in their natural environment, and we do what they're doing. And children tend to respond really well when you do what they want, or when you do what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not when you do what they want, but when you kind of follow their interests and engage in their
So I
agenda.
just want to know just what I can tell your love for what you do. Like I'm a very much a passion driven. I can tell where did this passion and interest and love come in with baby and toddler speech or I'm sorry,
Yeah.
communication.
Yeah. So I always knew that I wanted to work in pediatrics. Initially, I thought that I wanted to become a pediatrician. And so I followed the pre-med track in undergrad, and I was also a bio major, and I also had a minor in public health. So I knew that I wanted to be in the public health space, but I knew that I wanted to be in the public health space and also in healthcare and in pediatrics. I just wasn't really sure what route I was going to take, but I thought like a pediatrician is what I feel like everybody tends to navigate towards when you want to go in healthcare and work with kids. And so I thought initially that that's what I wanted to do. And then that was until I took an elective around my sophomore year in undergrad. And it was called Foundations of Human Communication.
Mm,
And I just kind of took it expecting something totally different, to
yeah.
be very honest. And when I took it, it was a course that was under the speech and hearing sciences um, kind of umbrella in my school. And so when I took it, I was like, wow, there's a whole science behind how humans communicate and helping them to communicate when they do need extra supports or when they have deficits in their communication. And then so that's when I ended up switching my major, which was crazy because I'm Haitian, and if you live in a Caribbean household, changing your major in the middle of college is like, what are you doing?
Yes.
Are you gonna finish in time? And so thankfully I did. And then actually in grad school, I thought that I wanted to become a medical SLP. And
Mm.
so that's the track that I pursued. And I thought that I wanted to work with adults until I did a couple of clinical rotations in school. And I was like, this is really where it is. And then I just started niching down to the population that I loved, and that happened to be children under 5.
So amazing. I got chills. I have chills.
Oh,
So I'm going
good.
to tell the community why I wanted to talk to you. Not only because you are a woman of color and having women of color as a speech and language pathologist is like few and far between,
Mhm.
but also, so I'll give my quick short story and journey because we got a lot to cover is that I have 2 children. And I felt like I did all the things for the first one. He was moving and shaking, no TV, all the rules and regulations that, just the unwritten things. And,
Yeah.
second one came and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I'm trying to have one child and then the other child. And I'm like, did I fail him? Then the middle of COVID happened and
Yeah.
my mouth was covered. And it's just, we went through a rigmarole. And, our son ended up, he's doing really, really well. He's
Mhm.
thrived. But I needed to get him, just to make sure I understood like where he was missing the gaps. Cause it was like the things he never even could grade on the assessment, on the scale, because like the stuff he didn't know was like simple to,
Yeah.
for his age. And then he was knowing 4 and 6-year-old information, so it was so disjointed. So I want to be
Yeah.
very honest. I never really even like talk to this community about like I really struggle. I really struggle with feeling like I was starting my business up, and I felt like I failed my second one because I was like, oh my gosh, and not all the realizing all the things that had taken place. He was born 6 months after COVID started
Yeah.
to hit. And it was a nightmare. And so I want to normalize this for the community. Some of our children may need something. In the Black community, especially, we may feel like the stigma is attached to it, that if our child needs a little bit more or this, he will grow out of it type of thing. And within 6 weeks, my son was like excelling. And I was just
Yeah.
like, I just needed to know what's missing, because that barrier is so
Yeah.
large to like what could be missing, and like to normalize that. Let's figure out what these milestones look like, where we need to be, and getting our children help sooner than later, and
Yeah.
not feeling like you got to get them help for 25 years. It's just knowing every child is different and what they need. And if you have siblings and one sibling is here and then the other one, you're like, oh my gosh. And then someone's like, well, is it really that he's that behind, or is it your other son just is he's highly excelling? And
Yeah.
it's just things come naturally in a different way to him. Does that so
Yeah.
I wanted to go into my next question on
Yeah.
resources and like understanding the milestones, and if there are concerns, if there are delays, what should parents be looking for
Yeah.
to just manage that?
Yeah. So I'm actually, if anybody is looking for milestone information, I'm just gonna say that this is a great time to get out a pen and a paper, because I'm gonna go through the milestones from 12 months to 36 months, and I'll keep the language really simple. And I'll keep kind of the main milestones really. Oh, you got your stuff ready. Perfect. I'll also keep kind of like the big picture main milestones. In my brief as I go through it. And I also wanted to tell you, I know that you were telling the story about like your two children. A lot of people tend to internalize delays as a lot of parents tend to internalize delays as being their fault. And if no one takes, anything away from this conversation, if your child is having areas of needs and it happens to be communication or motor or anything else, it's not your fault. It's not anything that you did do or anything that you didn't do. The most important part is that if you do realize that your child is experiencing some form of a delay, is to know that there are lots of supports out there. There are free resources, there are paid resources. There are a lot of people that are out here to support you, and there are a lot of people who literally studied this, right, so that they can be able to support you. So there's no need in suffering alone. So I just wanted to tell you that, because I know that you were talking about, starting your business, and did that have an impact on your child's development? It's nothing that you did or didn't do, but there are also people who are here waiting for you to ask those questions so
And
we
to
can
get
help
that,
you.
I need to like normalize. Like we make the social media think like it's some perfect world that we
Yeah.
live in, and I suffered in silence. And now I'm like, it was, I'm glad that I did it. I'm glad that, we took something small from daycare that, we had to move him daycares to a place like he was potty trained in 2 weeks. Sometimes it's also finding your right people that can
Yeah.
also get with your child to figure out what they need that they mesh well with, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it does. It does. That was really, really good.
Yeah.
So thank you. I'm glad that we got that out of the way, because I want to make sure that I said that.
I
Yes, that's always sitting on my spirit. I'm like, it's not you. You didn't do anything,
know.
but now that we're here, let's figure out a game plan. Yeah.
The only one
Yeah.
going to normalize that it can happen to any, like we need to get the preventative care that.
Exactly. Yeah, of course, of course. No, whoever is experiencing this is definitely not the only person. So I just wanted to get that out there. So if anybody did not get their pen and paper, again, I'm just gonna shout out. This is a good time. Just because I'm gonna go through the milestones, and then I'll let you know kind of what to look out for. What are the early signs that you need to get some help? So I like to start at 12 months, because I feel like most of our audience is like 12 to 36 months. So I'm gonna talk about the word count. So lots of people talk about seeing milestones, and I know that milestones and like milestone information can be very overwhelming, and sometimes it's just numbers with no explanation. So we'll go through those numbers, and then we'll talk about kind of what the narrative means. So at 12 months, so right around your child's first birthday, we're looking for a child to have really 1 to 2 words about. right? And then some children have up to 5 words, but most children have around 1 to 2 words. And when you look at milestone information, especially for communication, you'll notice that there's a smaller number, and then there's a dash, and then there's a bigger number. When I communicate this information to my families, I like to remind them that the smaller number is going to be the milestone, which means that 90% of kids are doing this. And then the higher number is going to be the average, which means that 50% of kids are doing this. So a lot of times families will see the bigger number and they will immediately freak out and be like, my 12-year-old does not have 5 words. That's okay. Does your 1-year-old have at least 1 to 2 words? Because that would be the milestone, what 90% or most kids are doing. So at 12 months, we're looking for between 1 to 2 words and all the way up to 5 words. So if your child falls anywhere in between, they're on a pretty good track. And then we're also looking for kids to imitate actions or movements, either with your body or with an object, and then different sounds, right? Like ba, ba, ma, 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 right? When you're making those sounds and you're expecting your child to imitate, we're looking for children to start to imitate some of those sounds and then some of those big body movements like clapping or maybe putting their hands up. And then we're also looking for 10 or so gestures around this age. So by 16 months, we're looking for 16 gestures. Around 12 months, we want to see at least 10 gestures that are coming. There is a long list of gestures that professionals do expect, but I always like to say that gestures are so culture specific, that the gestures that are happening in your home might not be the gestures that are happening in your neighbor's home. So 10 meaningful gestures, waving, clapping, putting your hands up, anything that is meaningful and conveys information, right? We count that as a meaningful gesture. And then finally, around 12 months, we're looking for kiddos to answer where questions, not with words, but by kind of looking around, right? Where's mama? And then they turn around and they look. Like, where's your bear? And then they turn around and they look. So those would be the milestones for 12 months. I'm going to pause. And then we're going to jump into 15 months, which is going to be really quick. And then 18 months tends to be where I get most of my referrals. So around 15 months, we're looking for kids to have between 2 to 6 words. Again, if they have 2 words, great. If they have all the way up to 6 words, that's great too, right? And then we're looking for children to also look to an item that you're naming. So if you're, saying, there's the book or like there's the bear, that they're turning around and that they're looking at it. And then around this time too, like children are starting to use some more words to be able to communicate, right? And then they're also starting to show kind of like more affection too, like coming in for hugs and like really cuddling, right? That's kind of part of social language too. And then in terms of words, because that's always the big question, like what counts as a word? So a word is anything that your child says in context. So the dog is here, they say da or dog, right? Anything that they say spontaneously. So you're not prompting or independently, I'm sorry, you're not telling them, say dog, say dog, say dog. It's something that they say on their own. And it's something that they say pretty consistently. So it doesn't have to be the full adult version of the word in order to count as a word. So a child might say part of a word like ba for bottle. If they see that bottle and every time they see that bottle, they say ba, and you know that they're talking about the bottle and it's super in context, that counts as a word. And what I tell parents is, because they're like, how do I count? Or like, I haven't been keeping track. What do I do? If you have an iPhone, you open up the notes app and you just write, like Noah's words or Joanne's words. And every time you hear a word and you know that it counts as a word, then you just put it in your notes app. I don't really know what the version of it is on Android, but like whatever it is on Android, you open up the app and you just pop the words in there. That way, if your pediatrician asks, or if you have concerns and you're now looking to contact the speech language pathologist, you can just open up the app and then check out to see, okay, my child has about this number of words. This is why I'm contacting. I'm a little concerned that they're behind. Yeah. All right, you're good? Okay,
I
perfect.
got my notes.
Oh, good. All right, perfect. So we'll jump into 18 months and then there'll just be 2 more and then we'll be done with the milestone information. So at 18 months, we're looking for kids to have between 10 to 50 words. So again, 10 is what most kids are doing. That's what most kids have. And then some kids have all the way up to 50 words. If your child is anywhere in between, then they're pretty much, on a good track. Around this time, some kids might start to combine words, although a lot of kids don't start to combine words until 24 months. And combining words is really putting at least 2 words together, right? Like mama go, or more milk, or want eat, right? They're starting to put those two words together. And then around this time they have about 60 gestures. So again, waving and pointing, saying hi and bye, putting their hands up, putting hands down. And they're starting to point to common words too, right? Like, where's the dog? They're pointing to the dog. And then they're starting to follow some one-step directions. And then if your kid is a little bit ahead, they might start to follow some two-step directions. So that might look like, go get your shoes and, put it in the basket or something. I just made that up. I didn't think that through. But, like one step and then the next step in the direction. So that's what we're expecting around 18 months.
Perfect.
Yeah. And then there's just two more. So at 24 months, that's when we really see a big hike in children's language. So around the end of 18 months, all the way up to the 24-month mark, like language really just goes like it just shoots up. So now we're looking for 50 to 300 words, which is a huge gap. Again, the last number is what 50% of kids are doing. The first number is what most kids are doing. So we're really looking for at least 50 words by 24 months. So if you're looking at 300 words, which this tends to happen, my parents freak out. They're like, I know he doesn't have it. And I'm like, okay, but do they have at least 50 words? So that usually kind of makes them feel like, okay, yes, they do. And then this is kind of where having the list comes into play, because they can kind of go through and say, yeah, or like, no. And then we're also looking for them to combine at least 2 to 3 words. So now we're starting to get into those phrases going all the way up to short sentences. And then we're still expecting them to follow some really good simple directions, but now we're also expecting them to follow directions with some location words, like put it in, take it out, take it off, right? So those really nice location words, we're starting to expect them to understand. And then also answering simple WH questions. So who, what, and then maybe where, but if your child is not answering where questions right now, that is okay. And then we're also expecting them to, start to produce some of those early sounds, like the P sound, the B sound, the D sound, and H and W. So that would be like papa, dog, baby, mama, no, hi, and wow, right? So those are the sounds that we're expecting. And then we're also expecting that the people who are closest to them will understand 50% of what they say. So a lot of my parents will tell me, like, I have no idea what they're saying around this age, because one, they're having that big language boost and they're talking so much and they have all this great vocabulary, but also they're trying to fill in the gap between single words and sentences. And they're like, okay, well, when mommy talks, she says blah, 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 ball, right? And they're like, I'm trying to tell her to get me the ball. I don't really have all those words to make the sentence, so it could literally sound like mama ball. And that is completely normal. It sounds like they're talking their own language, but that's just them trying to figure out, how do I jump from just a single word all the way to like what mom and dad usually do when they're having a conversation. That's called jargon. I get questions about jargon all the time, to the point that I created a blog post about it. So I will maybe put that in my stories later if anybody wants to go and look more into it. And then finally at 36 months, so really 18 months to 36 months is where I get the most referrals. Like, parents will really call around this age, either being concerned or being confused. So at 36 months, we're looking for at least 250 words, but most kids have, or sorry, some kids have all the way up to 1,000 words. Again, that's like a big, huge gap. And then we're looking for them to really get into short sentences. So combining 4 to 5 words in an utterance. So, I want go school, I want eat banana. We're really looking for them to put more words together and then to follow more complicated directions. So I want you to go upstairs and, get your blue shirt or something like that. And then we're also looking for them to really start making the k sound. So like, I know it's like a C, but we call it like the K sound. And then the G sound, the T sound, the N sound, the ing sound, which is like fishing, that last sound at the end, the F sound, and then the Y sound. So those sounds would be like kite, go, tall, eating, fish, and yo-yo. And then we're looking for you and the people around them to understand them about 75% of the time. Yeah, and then that takes us to 36 months.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Now this is beyond helpful. And I know we're getting close to being to time. So I really want to talk through how do you help or quick tips to help families that
Yes.
have more than one child to like juggle that piece of making sure that the children that come behind that the that they get what they need or to notice it. 'Cause sometimes life is life in and when more you like all of a sudden you look up and 36 months are here and like
Yeah.
sometimes in schools you don't really start to that 2 to 3 age window with depending on where your child is at or child is with grandparent or somewhere else, it just depends.
Hmm.
What do you tell families to like really help this the day to day or like as I'm cooking dinner or how do you incorporate just in the normal so you don't feel like you're pressuring the child like drilling them to get to
Yeah.
know the next phase.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is that in order to grow language, you really don't have to drill your child or really even play with them. So, a lot of my families that are coming into my practice, they're really busy families, right? They have a lot going on, whether or not there are multiple children or there are just high demand jobs that they're having to do, or they're business owners. And it's just like, Joe, I just don't have the time. Like, what do I do? And the great thing is that you can grow language during daily routines. And I actually have a course that's coming out tomorrow for speech language pathologists, and also it's coming out at the end of the spring for parents. But families can grow their children's language during daily routines. So you don't have to make a huge shift and you don't have to sit on the floor and play all day. And we definitely do not like flashcards at like in this age group anyway. So I don't recommend doing flashcards. It feels like drilling. They're essentially memorizing and then they might get frustrated and like walk away from you and never talk again. And so while you're cooking, just talk about what you're doing, right? You can talk about it from your perspective or you can talk about it from their perspective. Mommy's making breakfast. Oh, let's get cereal. Oh, where's the cereal? Oh, it's on top. All right, let's get it down, 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 down. And let's open the box. Ready, set, open, right? And then you take it out. Oh, it's so hard. Oh, pop. Oh, it's open, right? Like you're just narrating what you're doing in the simplest language, right? Try to see if you can keep it under 5 words. If you're talking in a long string of information, you have lost them. And then realistically, they're not going to talk in a long string of information. So why are you modeling it this way? Keep the language simple and talk about what you're doing as you're doing it. The nice thing that I like about routines is that it's already something that you're doing throughout the day, right? You don't have to change your schedule. Bath time needs to happen. Bedtime needs to happen, cooking needs to happen. So you just incorporate and embed the language and the language strategies into what you're already doing. And the three things that I like about routines is that they are repetitive, they happen all the time, they're predictable. Children can expect that they will happen. And then they have multiple steps, right? If you think about cooking a meal, you have to get your ingredients together, right? You have to chop things up. You might have to boil something. Then you have to set up dinner. Like there are so many different opportunities in that one routine for you to model language and then also involve your child in that routine, just in case you have a hand-on learner. Like I'm a very tactile learner. So if your child is a very tactile learner too, just engaging them in that routine so that they can learn. So yeah,
Thank you.
I hope that helps.
Beyond helpful and beyond helpful. So can you just let everyone know where to find you, if they need assistance, what
Yeah,
resources? Just give it to us again, just so they know. If there's anything on your website or any keywords to put in to like get some of your many. Like when I found you, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is like a wealth of
yeah,
information, and it was just
yeah.
helpful on how your page is just set up and all the things. So you could just
Yeah.
let people ways to stay in touch with you.
Yeah, of course. So I am beyond Babbles everywhere except for Twitter. I can't get on there. I can't figure it out. I am no. But I am beyond Babbles everywhere else. So that's BEYOND BABBLES. And I'm also beyondbabbles.com in terms of my website. So one thing that I do offer to all of my followers, or regardless of whether or not you're following me, is my newsletter. So in my newsletter, if you sign up for my newsletter, you can go to beyondbabbles.com/newsletter, or you can go to beyondbabbles.com/resources. I post 1 to even 3 resources every month. So these are based on conversations that I've had with my community or that I've had with my clients. And I either answer a question that a lot of my families have, or I create a resource to help my families navigate a specific strategy. And so even this month, right, there's a verbal routines resource that I have, which is a strategy that I use all the time. And people are like, oh, what are verbal routines? Like I hear that word all the time. So I break it down for you, and then I give you 10 resources, right? That or 10 examples of a verbal routine that you can use in your home now. One of my standing resources that I have not taken down from my resource library is 6 tips on how to build your child's language that you can implement today. Like you can literally open up your phone, download it, and then implement it today. And these are the 6 tips that I tell my families, like kind of like over and over again, that I decided, why don't I just put that all on one page? I use really simple language. I don't use jargon. So it's everyday language that families can understand it. And you can literally implement those strategies today. And I've been getting a lot of feedback. And I actually posted some of the feedback that I got today from like my verbal routines poster. People are like, I literally just tried it and it worked. So these are tried and true strategies. Again, you have to remember that every child is different, and maybe a strategy might not work for your child that worked for another, but so far the feedback is pretty positive. So if you join the newsletter, every month you get those hosts of resources, but also every month they rotate out. So you have like 5 days to get the resources for March, and then those come down, and then you get a whole set of new resources for April. So all of my resources are there. I can put the link to my resource library actually in the chat right now. And then I was going to comment the words that you can comment, that your followers can comment to get the resources, but actually if they just go to the resource library, it'll be there. So I figure that might be easier. So I'm just gonna pop that into the chat right now. And also, is it okay if I just plug in one more
You
thing?
know it's okay. You look,
Okay.
you all the sauce, all the sauce.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. So I'll plug in 2 things. One, there is a wait list for my parent course on routines, and that link will be in my link in bio. And that's going to be a course literally for busy parents who are looking for strategies to implement during their daily routines. You'll get a song for every routine. You'll get sign language to use for every routine. You'll get language strategies to use for every routine. So literally as you're cooking, you can pull it up on your phone and everything will be on there. And there's lots of me and I'm singing the song for you. So if you can't sing, just use my voice. So that's one thing. And my other thing was going to be, I really want to harp on not waiting. One reason why I have my own private practice is that I work with a lot of families of color, and specifically with my Black families. I hear a lot, like, my Uncle Tom, he didn't speak until he was 5. Or like my cousin Day Day didn't speak until he was 4. And I'm like, okay, your cousin Day Day and your Uncle Tom, they both needed speech therapy. Like I don't want to normalize the waiting. And then also I do get a lot of families who kind of want to, because religion is such a big aspect of like being Black, right? They are so invested in their religion that their solution is to pray. But I just want to remind my Black families, especially, God created speech therapists. So I want you to use the resource that God has literally put in front of you, and take advantage of us because we're here and we're here to help. And there are just some strategies that don't work, and we know that waiting definitely doesn't help because you're missing critical time. Somebody just asked, how long should people wait? Never. If you have a concern, call right away. Your pediatrician, if they're not having that conversation with you or if they're shooing you away, which it happens, I get a lot of families who say, I called at 18 months, my pediatrician told me not to worry or wait and see. That is not the advice that speech language pathologists are giving. So if you're getting that advice, talk to somebody else or call up a speech language pathologist separate from your pediatrician. So don't wait and see. And also, early intervention is free in just about every state. I am shocked at how many people don't know about early intervention, but then I also feel like maybe we just don't talk about it enough. Private therapy seems to be super accessible. We market it really well. And even though I have a private pay practice, I always ask my families, did you call early intervention? And if they say no, I say, I'll call for you, because their services are almost always free. It depends on your income and how many people are in your house, but a lot of families actually do get services for free. Um, Okay. And services, children age out of services when they're 3. So if you're looking for early intervention and it's 35 months, your child is 35 months, you only have a month left. You might not even start services. So if your child is under 3, the first number you should call is early intervention. So that's what I wanted to plug in.
Oh, thank you. So helpful. So much
Yeah.
information. Yes, from what anyone is asking, this lab will be saved. It will go on there as a permanent place. Bring any families, anyone that you know, you can bring them to this resource because this is a very helpful lab. So is there anything else you want to add? Thank you for your time today. Just want to encourage to put in a plug as well for getting the help sooner rather than later, to getting your children the help that they deserve. Private pay is still amazing. It is very, depending on what accessible means to you,
Yeah.
very important for us to just make sure we had a it doesn't matter. But anyway, just want to encourage like these speech and language pathologists are doing an amazing job helping our children, making sure they get where they're going, they can start school or wherever you're going to do homeschool, whatever it is, just getting the care that they need to prioritize that, not just about walking and crawling too. It is also just making sure language development is there and not worrying about what family or the judgment or anything that may take place because some don't even need it that long. Some just need to know what they need. And I could just say from personal experience, just being able to have the resource and the continue. So maybe you don't, but then you do, it for something
Yeah.
else or,
Yeah.
tutoring or whatever it is as time goes on. Advocating for your child is
Mm-hmm.
important because so many people want to label children with every little thing. And so finding someone that looks like you can be important as well because sometimes we take as Black women or Black families information from people that look like us a little bit better and different, and that's just the way life is, and we know that, and that's why I wanted to bring someone that looks like you onto this platform, just because the reality exists that this is what it is. And
Yeah.
so thank you so much for your time today. This
Of
resource,
course.
please follow Beyond Babbles. If you've made it to this part in this lab, if you're watching it later, please follow her. An amazing resource. She wowed me when I found her page. So
Aw.
the algorithm was algorithming just the
Yes.
right. And I knew I had to bring her to this platform. So much hard work. Thank you for your dedication to making sure that children get the care that they deserve too. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Dixon. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I seriously do. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Bye.
Thank you. You
Bye.
too. Bye. Be safe. Bye.